Welcome to my repair and maintenance video part 2. In this little video I want to show you how to do a repair if you have a crack in your paddle. You can also see how you can make the reinforced edges new again. And I want to introduce some different glues and different techniques, and mainly I want to introduce my little repair epoxy kit here. First of all, I want to show you a repair. I deliberately damaged this paddle just now because I wanted to show you how a crack like this could be fixed really easy. And I would say my primary choice of glue for a wood paddle like this would always be the PU glue. And it comes in different varieties. I have my own I use here, and these are little kits that I sell in my web shop, Gorilla Glue. You can buy it all over the world. You could even use super glue, or you could use ordinary wood glue. Just make sure that it is sealed well after you have done the gluing. So there's a lot of stuff you can do. The main rule of gluing wood together is to keep it clean and dry. Keeping it clean is hard when it comes to a crack because it may be just a tiny crack in the tip of the paddle. You obviously can't clean that, but you can make sure that it's completely dry. So take your paddle inside, leave it inside in a dry spot for a few weeks, and then you do the gluing, and you can be sure that it is dry enough for the glue. So now two things. I just want to show you this little invention of mine. Actually, it's not my invention. It's been used for years for tires. It's an inner tube from a bicycle. And if you cut a bicycle inner tube into straps like this, you get a great repair kit. You should always bring some of these when you're out paddling, and you can use them for holding together difficult things. Obviously, you can't make a clamp hold this paddle together. You need a piece of rubber strap. You can make it yourself like this. And if it wasn't for the video, I guess I would just have taken some of my PU glue, smeared it on the inside here, let it soak into the wood, and then wrap these around it. But now I want to show you how to use the epoxy kit. So we're gonna move on to epoxy. For my epoxy, I use this Epoxy. It's just ordinary quality industrial type epoxy that I have put on little bottles suitable for little repairs and maintenance jobs. I added a little web address here where you can download the data sheet and some instructions. And I've added a little bag of powder. It is wood dust, and I use it as filler to get a thicker epoxy that I can use to fill little cracks. I want to take some of the resin and two parts of the hardener. I'm just gonna use a little piece of plastic container here. You can find something in your household suitable that you can throw away after you've used it, like a yogurt container or something. You place it on a fine scale and set it to 0. And now we will need to see. Just gonna make a small amount of epoxy now. 0.6, 0.7 it says. Now let me see if I can make that 10. That's 10. 11. That's good enough for this project. If I didn't have the little scale, then you can kind of try to judge the volume. 2 parts of this, 1 part of that, and it will probably be good enough. For steering, I use this little stick, and I can use the same stick to apply it. And make sure that it's really steered well. I think they say you should do this for a minute. I rarely do it for so long, but yeah, probably right. Now the thing with this epoxy is that the viscosity is very, very low. You can really get it to soak into your material. Oops. Keep some paper handy in case of accidents. You don't want epoxy all over the place. And now for the crack here. I think I will just make it drip down in the crack like this. So I just put some on and let the gravity do the rest, because as I said, it's super thin, so it will get down into the crack. And of course, if there's a lot of hardened epoxy on the outside here, you have an extra job after curing the epoxy, the job of sanding or scraping away epoxy. So my advice is to rather just let it soak in, and when it starts to harden, or just before it starts to harden, you should just wipe it off with paper tissue. Now you can go and take a cup of coffee. When you get back, you can go over it again. You can open the crack a little bit, make sure that it soaks nicely into the wood. So now my coffee is ready. So I think it's about time to do the strapping. So I just tie a few of these straps here and there. I can see on the back side here that the epoxy is pouring out, which means that it's been soaked well in. Of course, if it's not such a severe crack like this one, then you can just kind of pour it in. You don't need these, because the good thing about the epoxy is that it fills up cracks. It has this ability to fill up. So okay, here goes. And now, of course, to just avoid having too much work afterwards, I will dry off excess epoxy now. So paper. If there are like gaps, this is a very tiny gap, but you can see here there's a little gap. There's a little bit of the wood actually missing. I'm gonna show you how to deal with that, because that is the reason that I added this sawdust. This is real Norwegian wood dusts, and I just mix it to a slightly thicker paste. I would say it should have the thickness of peanut butter. So if it drips off your stick like this, it's too thick. You need to add more. And this is kind of the perfect material also for reinforcing the edge of the paddle, the tip, because most of my paddles I make nowadays, I add a little layer of exactly this stuff on the outside. So if some of that is worn off, you can easily redo it. Now I just scrape it really thinly so it just gets into the crack and nothing more. And that's it. On this side, you can see there's a little bit of wood and reinforcement missing. So I just fill it up with my wood epoxy filler like this and try to get it as smooth as possible, following the shape of the paddle, so that there will be less work when it's hardened. When this is hardened, I'll get a piece of sandpaper like this and I will just sand it down. And maybe if I want to make it look pretty again with the white tip here, I'll just paint it white. I have some paint like this. You can use whatever you find at home, or go and buy a little can of paint and you can just paint over it. There was a little crack missing here too. So now I leave the paddle to dry now for maybe 24 hours, maybe a little less depending on the temperature, but 24 hours should be good. And then I take my sandpaper, sand over what's left. I may scrape off epoxy also with a knife, and it's good to go for many years of paddling again. Thank you.